Alright. Hello. Welcome back. This is WR Frady. And I just wanted to jump on here for a few minutes. Give you a little bit of an update of how the map's coming along. We're still working on forests. There are a lot of forests. But I'm also going to let you watch me from a different angle as I put in some of these forests. Alright, let's do this. Okay, flip it around. Alright, first thing I want to show you is, we were up here in this area. I'm going to move this older map back just a little bit to see. So we have started off way up here and have been filling in forests all the way down to here, which I have added in some of these since the last time we did the update. So we're going to go down here and work on some of these, except this time I'm going to bring you along to let you see from a different angle as I do this. Alright, just set up where I can have you watching. Alright, get you in place. Alright, so right here, I'm going to grab this other map back here, is we're going to be doing this particular forest. I think I'm still working on names for these, so there's a lot of them that haven't, sorry, to make sure everything is good, yeah. There's a lot of them that haven't been fully named yet, so that gets to be some fun. And, may join in with you guys doing that when I'm working on that part. There's quite a bit to world building. It's not, especially, building a simple kingdom is not too bad. It's not an easy task. But world building is an art form of its own, and I absolutely love world building. I mean, it's such a rewarding process. I mean, you think about it, Tolkien was creating Middle Earth. I mean, as he was doing his math, as he sat back, looked at what he was creating, it makes you wonder what he thought about what he saw. Now, I know in interviews with Christopher Tolkien, he said that when he was growing up, the world of Middle Earth was as real to him as the Roman Empire and Greek and the Vikings and all that, because his dad, J.R. Tolkien, would talk to them and tell them the stories and the histories and the legends. I remember doing that with my own kids. But there's such a wonder and beauty. And see, I guess what a lot of people, especially, those who just see fantasy worlds as something for their adventuring party to go ripping through and loot everything in sight. Unfortunately, there are ones like that. There are gamers and players and groups like that. What they don't see is the absolute passion, the love, the history. They don't see the world come to life in the same way as the people who actually created it. I mean, take Forgotten Realms, for example. Forgotten Realms was originally created by Ed Greenwood. And his Forgotten Realms, he had a definitive vision for that. I don't personally believe it's the vision that we see today. Let me put these trees in here. In fact, you about don't even recognize the Forgotten Realms from what it used to be anymore. And to be honest with you, I actually missed the Forgotten Realms of the first and second edition of Dungeons and Dragons era. As you see how the trees are coming along. But I actually missed the Forgotten Realms of the advanced Dungeons and Dragons era. You know, the post Time of Troubles, the Avatar trilogy, the Moonshade trilogy. Those days of the Forgotten Realms, because it was more pure, it was less mainstream fantasy and more of the fantasy that that Dungeons and Dragons really capitalized on, and it lent toward the same kind of fantasy you would see in Lord of the Rings and Willow, and just different, and just in different fantasy genres. I mean, you even had Al-Qadim, which was another part of the world of Toril, that focused more on the tales of the Arabian Nights, and then you had Karator, and I could go on, but yeah, it's just today's iterations of the Forgotten Realms. It's rather empty. I mean, the one real constant in the Forgotten Realms is Drizzt, and that's a thankful. Drizzt is one of my all-time favorite characters. I love his morals, his values, his sword work, especially when you see him. And it actually thrilled me to see him and Artemis and Trary finally team up rather than be against each other, and that was a whole new feat of its own. Okay, right here's where we're going to go next. So this one, we're going to start here at this very top, and this is where we're going to start with a new symbol for the tropical type, like palm and more tropical type trees. And you're going to start seeing the gradual move from the temperate forests here around, because right here you're in the I'm going to say it's the Zaharan Desert. The Zaharan Desert, I believe is what it's called. But you're going to start seeing the transition into the forests of the southern climates of Sothren. So you're leaving the temperate, going into the slightly subtropical, and with temperate, and so you're getting into the subtropical, going down toward the tropical zones. So the trees and the vegetation here is going to change. So now it's just making it, giving that, we'll have one or two small site, like we'll have fewer and fewer coniferous trees. And then there we go, nice, seeing it coming together a little more. But yeah, anyway, as I was saying, this is, when it comes to building fantasy worlds, Yeah, it is a daunting and tedious task, but it is so. When you see everything come open, it is so well worth it. I mean, it is. There's just such a compassion and love for this. There we go. There's that part. Okay, down here in this next section, it's going to get. I'm going to start off with another one of these palm type trees. Maybe one, like I said, we're getting less and less pine trees and evergreens, and getting more of the kind that, more of the tropical jungle type trees. All right, now let's see. Here we go. I'm gonna put in this one. You see, I was starting to shift more. You kind of look at it kind of like what you'd see with a willow. There is no pine trees down here, so we want to make sure that there are no coniferous down this particular section. There we go. Now, as you see, it's starting to really come together in this. And I mean, it's which I get to introduce you to Melanthia, the Kingdom of Ancient Waterfalls. And then I forgot, you got Nasseria, the land of the Valley of Ancient Winds, way up north. So it's got some. There are plenty of interesting places in here that some may or may not ever get explored in some of your main, some of the main books, but then maybe they will. But I know that they'll get their own time to shine. I mean, just because their backgrounds in one doesn't mean that they're not their own main character or main setting in another story. I always say that a background character doesn't know that he's a background character, and that's actually very true. I mean, you know, one of the things I can give George Lucas a tremendous amount of credit for when it comes to the Star Wars sagas is that every character in Star Wars had their own story. Alright, let's see. Make sure we got plenty of lead out here. you go. Starting to see it come to life. I mean, like if you go back to the old expanded editions, the old expanded universe, you'll go into the Tales of the Mos Eisley Cantina and the Tales of the Jedi. Nope, not Tales of the Jedi, yes, but Tales of the from Jabba's Palace and Tales of the Bounty Hunters, and you start finding where everybody's place and purpose and why they were where they were, and then suddenly that entire universe became much more alive. Now I know you're probably going to say, but Frady, these authors did these stories for these other tales, and yes, you're right, they did. However, not without the input and the say-so of what Lucas had to present. He had to let them know, okay, this is the character, I want you to tell his story, this is why he was here, this is how he got to be in the position, and why he was where he was at this particular point. So now the story is yours to go from there, using the elements I've given you to tell that story. And that's how George Lucas's part is in that, actually. So anyway, but no, as you can see, the forest has filled out. You see that the jungle imaging, I'm going to get you out here and get you a little closer to it. You see how the jungle imaging is starting to really take effect as we've drifted further and further south, creating a natural and almost realistic real-world biome, moving from the deciduous and temperate forests up here, moving down into the subtropic and tropical forests down below. As I was saying, this is Nalanthia, the kingdom of ancient waterfalls. And then way up here in the north, you've got the Valley of the Wind. You've got Nassaria, the Valley of the Winds, the Great Valley of the Winds. So, and then you've got I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's Dragon. Basically, it's another. Wish I had it on hand. But the Drakhorn, that's it. The Drakhorn Mountains, which has a fire elemental kingdom in here. So, and so on. There's others. So, and there's plenty of other wondrous little places in the world of Areth. And the actual name of the setting comes from that area right there, which is Balador. And Balador has been basically mine since the early 2000s. I've been working on this officially since the 2003-2004 era. But unofficially, I've worked on this since the early 90s, because that was when the first building blocks, the early to mid 90s, is when the first building blocks of what would become Balador came into place, and the challenge that was issued to me that would begin my journey into wanting to create this world. So this world has got a lot of history and will probably be ever evolving the rest of my life, even as I write stories, novels, and the histories and legends of it. So there will be a whole lot to share and go around. I think if I'm not mistaken, right now in the history of lore of any one fantasy world, if I am not mistaken, and I could be, so I'm putting that out there right now, but if I'm not mistaken, Tamriel of the Elder Scrolls is right now the single most detailed fantasy world in fantasy media altogether, seconded by Lord of the Rings and ones like Dragonlance and some of them. And I know some people probably be like, well, what about Final Fantasy? Final Fantasy, not so much, because while all of it's in the same universe, it's also very different worlds with very different kingdoms, and each with their own particular storylines. Except for the ones that feature Cloud, and where they've kind of rinsed and repeated some of the later ones. But yeah, beyond that, still, there is just so much room to grow, and hopefully by the time I'm done, by the time that my life is done and Baladur and the world of Areth has grown, hopefully it will be up there on par, if not beyond, what Tamriel and Middle Earth and all them are. In fact, I hope that it will be one of those. My goal is to make this just in the passion and the love that I pour into it, not because I want to attain that sense of notoriety, but just in the love and the compassion I put into this. I would love to see it, rival and be equal to, if not greater than, some of those past. But of course, I don't think anybody's ever going to surpass pretty much the father of what began fantasy worlds, which is Middle Earth. And that's, without Tolkien, I don't think this genre would have ever taken off like it has. And so we've got to give him props for what he began. Like Horace Walpole was the father of Gothic horror, J.R. Tolkien is the father of modern fantasy. All right, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now. And as I sign off, I will be more than happy to try to get some more of this done. Anyway, I would like to thank you for. Let me get you up here where I can look at you. But yeah, I'd like to let you know how much I appreciate you joining in on my journey and following along as I create this. It kind of helps hold me accountable to make sure this stuff's getting done. Sometimes things can get in the way, and unfortunately, we can allow things to get in the way. But it's the things that really matter in life they're worth taking their time to do, and they're worth doing. And if it's worth doing, it's not going to be easy. Anyway, guys, I want to leave you for tonight on that note. Thank you for stopping in. I will talk to you again soon. Peace out. Oh, and be sure to check out W.R. Frady's official website, the evanstonetower.com. I will put it in the link below. But yeah, be sure to check on that. You'll see some of the lore from the world of Areth. And as I post new things up, it will be there. But of course, there's all kinds of other places to check out, stories to read, and get to learn a little bit more behind the scenes of W.R. Frady. So yeah, I'd definitely go check that out. W.R. Frady's, the evanstonetower.com, official home of all things W.R. Frady, which the Evanstone Tower actually comes from the world of Areth itself. Anyway, I will talk to you again soon. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next time.